All right, everyone, we're back with the beautiful TA-N7 all put together, except the bottom cover is off, so she's still bottom naked. Um, what you could see here is basically all the sum of all parts put back together with all the changes that I noted earlier. I'm not going to go through each one of these boards, and since I already went through some of the parts that got replaced, but what I will point out to is that which you probably didn't see earlier, is that I have changed the original polypropylene capacitors who were sitting right here with some better Jensen audio caps, and they're mounted on the custom plate that I made for the speaker post. That leads me to the speaker post, which I will showcase more of it maybe in a little bit, maybe after I get the device off the right now this device is actually under test. It's powered up. What I want to call out here is that I did retain the shield plate that's original here, and I keep the wires routed through the original channel between the frame to maintain that noise isolation. Also, if you noticed that, for those of you that have been inside these units, you probably notice multiple strands of wires, in a sense that Sony, instead of using one thick gauge of wire running from the amp board all the way back to the speaker post, they chose to use multiple strands of thinner wire and twist it, and that is primarily to deal with the impedance within the wire. All the power supply wires are here, as I mentioned. The bulk capacitors are replaced. These are really good quality capacitors, but they're obviously, the pitch between the posts is different than that of the original, so the copper boss plates had to be tilted on the angle. You could also see the IEC power connector right here and the plug into the back. I will spend some time on that in a minute. Once I take this device, I unplug it. Right now this device is basically working. It's pushing about 10 watts of power. I'm going to show you what it's hooked up with and what I'm doing with it right now. Basically, the exercise here was look at how is it performing under load. So it's hooked up at some 8 ohm loads that are sitting back there per channel. So it's hooked up to 8 ohm big resistors, power resistors, to mimic the load. Obviously these are fixed loads, they are not dynamic loads as a speaker is, so in reality the load on the amplifier will be different, but it's good enough for my test, for my bench test, to get to what I want to. Let's look at the instruments that I have on the bench here. A couple of multimeters here. That's because I'm lazy and I don't want to switch my analyzer from different screens at all times, so I just monitor the output of the amplifier. As I mentioned, this is about close to 9 volts. It's 8.9 volts RMS AC on 8 ohm load. That's about 10 watts. And I'm also looking at an oscilloscope, looking at the consistency of the sine wave, and then most important, I'm looking at the audio analyzer. That right now I'm looking specifically at the profile and the profile of the harmonics, and what we're shooting for is to have lower order harmonics, such as the second and third, be dominant over the higher order harmonics, and that's what this amplifier achieves. And it's also a harmonic profile that most of our ears prefer. I like it. I have to admit and confess that I did listen to this amplifier as soon as I got it stabilized. I was so eager to hear what I've done here, the results of the work that I've done. So I'm very pleased. There's going to be another video that's going to talk about the sonic qualities of this amplifier. Reverting back to my bench test right here, the reason I do this, and I do this for most of my amps, not just this one, is when tweaking the bias on these amps, depending on amplifier, that bias could vary, and it's not always, unlike against the popular belief or the discussions and trends out there about this amplifier, is not always the case that a higher bias is the key best sounding for this amplifier. So putting the bass at a very high, essentially the current to be higher than the manufacturer recommended by a lot, it's not necessarily beneficial. And actually that could be seen in the on the bench, as well as hearing it based on the harmonic profile, where particularly the 5th and 7th harmonic and 9th harmonic, so the odd harmonics, and going down the higher end, they become dominant over your lower end harmonics when at a certain bias. So trust but verify. Some of the myths that are going on the internet, they should be taken with a grain of salt and not repeated without verification. I try to do that. I try to do the best by listening to these amps, then confirming what I hear on the bench. This is not just my opinion with Sony. With the Sony, the hint came from Oscar, as I mentioned, from Oscar Asuka Audio. He hinted a few things to me, and I was able to verify with both my ears and my instruments. Another thing that I'm looking at when I'm looking at these amplifiers on my bench are at the sine wave. I want to make sure I have a consistent sine wave. It's not showing any deformities. I also want to make sure that the sound wave matches between channels. And as we're looking at this sine waves right here from left and right channel, they're pretty close. If I overstack them, like one takes completely over the other. So no surprise, because we actually do see the amplitude being also very, very close. We're looking at very minor variability. Another thing that to look at is also the total harmonic distortion on this thing. So we're gonna if we change screen here quickly, and we're seeing it's minus 94, 95 dBs at a 1 kilohertz. Obviously there is a way to get farther testing, such as frequency response, other types of tests. So there's other ways of looking at this. So right now, if I'm looking at the this in terms of percent instead of dBs, 95 dBs, it's about 0.0018. This is less than 0.002. So I think, and both channels are very comparable to each other, which I'm going to call this a success rebuild. The amplifier performs really well, very stable. So overall, I'm totally pleased. As I mentioned, I couldn't resist. I took a listen to it before I actually put it on a bench to fully test it. Obviously after I did set the bias, and I did actually tinker with the bias to see where I find the sweet spot in the listening room as well. So net, this is a beauty of an amplifier. It's also a solid amplifier that's going to work for many more years. Now let's take a quick peek before we move on from here. Let's take a quick peek at the speaker posts. I have them hooked up here. I could have hooked up straight with the bananas, but the bananas I'm using on this wire they're not great. As you could see, this is how the amp looks. I'll turn it around a minute. Actually probably should do that, because I'm done with the test, so I could turn it off and I could actually show you. 1 second. Alright, so here's the rear setup. This is what I figure would be a good solution for mounting proper speaker posts on this amplifier without making additional holes anywhere here. I mean, basically butchering this unit. So what I did, I basically created a plate that's mounted, and there's a filler for the original pseudo-rectangular speaker post that was there before. Obviously I wanted new RCA connectors. This is a really good quality RCA connector. The speaker posts are really good quality as well, very sturdy. And so I was able to achieve this on installing this this new setup, making the unit usable to newer standards with good speaker posts. So that's what I did. And for the IEC, it's just a chassis mount. I'm not happy that I had to cut a chassis for it, but I think it almost looks like a natural place to locate that connector. If Sony was going to do it again, I think this is where they would have placed it. Try to make it fit as naturally as possible. So yeah, there you have it. If going forward, I will probably install this in all my Sonys. As a matter of fact, I don't think I'm going to, even on my mule unit, I'm going to install this. This is basically how the setup looks like. It's just a plate with a protrusion, so it essentially fills in the thickness of the gauge. I actually created a place to mount the capacitor that you see here on this new plate, so that's kind of how it works. So there you have it. This is basically it's a two-part setup that I created. And so obviously there's the speaker posts that I have, they require a lock, and you could see that that's already built in, so makes it really easy to mount. Anyways, next stop, it's in the listening room, but until then, thank you very much for watching. I'm hoping that you found this video informative enough, and hoping that it gives you a sense of what it takes to restore one of these amplifiers that I would like to think the right way. There are other opinions out there, what should be replaced, what shouldn't be replaced. I think this is fairly comprehensive restoration, and it will give this amplifier another lease in life. So I will see you soon with a follow-up video on this amplifier in my listening room, and giving you the opportunity to hear some tunes. And until then, bye bye.